Alright then, so now we have our web form to add a new project, and if we click on add project, all we're doing is logging the title and the details to the console. Instead, it would be nice to take that, create a new project and save it to our db.json file over here. So we can do that by making a post request to an endpoint. So let's go to the add project component, and inside here, instead of just logging this to the console, let's instead, first of all, create a project object. And I'm going to set that equal to an object with a title property, and that is going to be this.title. So this data right here. We also need a details property, which will be this.details. And then remember, we have two other properties inside our objects. We have complete right here and ID. Now, when we're working with JSON server, we don't need to add an ID property ourselves right here. When we make that post request, JSON server will handle that and add a unique ID for us. And this one right here, complete, we should probably set to be false to begin with, since they've just created the project. So we'll say complete, and that will be false. And like I say, JSON server will add the ID property for us. But anyway, now we have this project. Let me just log it to the console so we can see it first of all. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to open up the console over here. I'm just going to type in a lot of old junk, add project, and now we can see this object with those three properties. So now I want to take that object and save it to this DB file over here. And we're going to do that using a fetch request. So let's say fetch, and what is the endpoint for a post request? Well, it's just this thing right here, /project, or whatever the resource is called. We don't need to say /ID because the ID of that project doesn't exist yet, so it doesn't make sense. It's just /projects. This is what we send a push request to. So I'm going to paste that in right here, and we need a second object because we want to define the method and also a couple of other things. So let me say method is going to be post, and then the second thing I need is the headers property. And remember, this is so I can say the content type that we're going to send is JSON. All right, so we have to add that on to say that we're sending some data and it's of type JSON. And thirdly, we need to say what the data is that we want to send, and that goes in the body. And again, we have to stringify this by saying json.stringify. This is how we send JSON data. And all we need to do is pass in our JavaScript object, the project that we created right here. So now we're sending this as JSON to the endpoint, and JSON server is going to look at that and save that new document or new object for us inside this db.json file. Okay, so let's give this a whirl. I'm going to come over here and I'll say make a new website and blah blah blah. I'm going to add the new project, and nothing happens here, but if we now take a look at db.json, we can see this new object over here, and it automatically has an ID of 3. JSON server did that for us. So this has worked, but we also want to be able to do something once this has happened. We don't just want to sit on this page because a user would have no idea that they've actually added a project. How about instead we redirect them to the home page once this is done right here? So let's try that. I'm going to tack on a then method right here to say fire a function when this is done. Now, I don't need to take in the response object because we're not going to do anything with that. All I want to do is do something once the fetch post request is complete. And the thing I want to do is say this dot router, and we're going to redirect them. So we use the push method to push another route into the history. And the route we want to go to is just /. Now, we could use an object here instead to say we want to go to the home component, but really this is quicker for me, so I'm just going to use /, and that does the same thing. It goes to this route. Now also I'm going to tack on a catch block to fire a callback function which takes in the error if there is one, just in case there's a problem with that, and we'll log that to the console. Alright then, so this is pretty much all done. I'm going to go back to db.json and delete that one we just created so we can add it again. And if I come over here, I'm going to say design a new website, and then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to just paste some lorem ipsum in here, add the project. Now it redirects us to the home page once it's done, and we can see that new project right here and the details. Cool. And just to make sure we can do things with this, we can complete it, and also we can delete it. Awesome.